Cheers, man.
Okay, great. So from here to there, so I had an opportunity to download this book.
Yes.
On my Kindle. Great stuff. How long did it take you to write the book?
It took me about 18 months. So start to finish, 18 months, which some people think is really short. Some people think is really long. It kind of depends on the person. I mean, for me, it was a long time.
18 months is a long time.
But you know, it was a really fulfilling process.
Was it therapeutic?
Say that again.
Was it therapeutic?
It was therapeutic. It was educational. It was transformational. You know, like a lot of those things, because it was a big transition for me from being a full-time golfer my whole life, pretty much, into new endeavors, and to be able to have something like this to kind of mark that transition and pivot was an awesome gift to me. But then now to hear the impact it's having on other people, it makes, because when you're writing anything or creating any content, right, the biggest question is, will it be worth it?
Exactly.
Will it mean anything to anyone? Will it ever make a difference? Will people love it? Will they hate it? Like,
at least in my lifetime, will I see that?
Yeah. And to hear from others who have read it and been impacted by it, I mean, if that's all I get from it, praise God. Like, that's all I want, you know? It's been a cool journey.
Now, in the book, I love this. It's closer to the beginning. You talk about how why should someone read a book written by someone who wasn't in the 1%?
Totally.
So could you explain that? So this is a golf book,
Yes.
but it's about principles that you can apply to your life.
Yes.
And you were a professional golfer, but you basically state, you know, you weren't in that top one. You weren't famous on TV next to Tiger Woods and things like that. So what benefit does someone have reading this book from someone like you?
It's a great point. That's one of my favorite parts about the intro, is like setting that stage, because I didn't succeed in my journey. You know, my whole goal in life was to be a successful professional golfer. Like, that's what I worked to for over 20 years. I didn't reach that goal. And it's so hard to get there. I mean, it takes guys on average 7 to 10 years to get the PGA Tour. It's not a short journey for anyone except the 1%, right? Of the 1%, a very infantile percentile, right? So I think the point is to say that hearing from people of great success is so inspiring and so encouraging and helpful. But what is more helpful is hearing from someone who's just like you, who's a part of the 99%, who's in the grind, in the struggle, in the process of becoming. And that's more relatable, honestly, because I'm in the thick of it with you.
Exactly.
So this book is entirely based on failure, quote unquote, right? And that's a really powerful thing, because we often think of failure as this determinative reality. When it's just a process that we go through. It's never a final finish point. It's just a stepping stone. Ariana Huffington's mother said, and I put in the book, a quote from her is that failure is a stepping stone to success.
It is.
You have to fail to succeed. And so we should stop assuming that as our identity and start embracing it as our tutor, ally, and friend in the journey of life.
And why do you think, how you frame failure, I think, is so important. And so many people, we frame failure as a reflection on us. And when we frame it in a negative light, all it does is continue to push us back. Why do you feel so many people struggle with failure? They allow the failure to keep them in the past, to keep them down, to keep them from moving forward.
Well, we talked about it a little earlier, right? It's like, it's way easier to be negative than positive. Our natural default is negativity, or that's the easiest path. The harder path is believing in your abilities, and when you don't even have proof to believe it, right? You don't have to base it on it. So I think that's the first thing. But the bigger one, and even, I mean, to this day, I still struggle with. Like, this last week was a hard week for me, because I was a little bit overly identifying with what I was doing and not who I am. And that's the kicker, right? When we struggle with failure, it's because we place our identity in what we do versus in who we are. And that is the biggest distinction that needs to be repeated a million times, because we all do it. We all do it, right? You are not defined by the things that you do. You're defined by being a human. And that's something that no one can take away, regardless of what it looks like on the outside, regardless of what other people say, regardless of the bank account associated with you, right?
Exactly.
None of that determines your ultimate identity. And so when we can understand that, it unlocks our ability to freely pursue whatever we are pursuing
Exactly.
without attachment of our identity to it. And then that unlocks failure redemptive power in a sense, right? It allows it to be redeemed for good and not determinative and demoralizing in a sense.
And I cannot fail at being myself. I cannot fail at being human.
Totally.
So if I take my eyes off what it is I'm doing or trying to do or feel I didn't do right, and just focus on, okay, I'm human. It's okay that I make mistakes, but I'm good at who I am.
And the other thing too is comparison, right? Like with that, because when you realize that, oh, I'm just me and I need to just be me, then you're like, oh yeah, all these other people and what they have and what they do is great, but it's not me.
It's not me.
And it doesn't need to be me.
Exactly.
I get to be me. It's like, this shouldn't be profound, but it is, right?
Yes.
Like, this is a profound concept. And that's the danger of the culture. That can be the danger of the culture we live in. It's very comparative. It's very image driven. It's very connected, which is a good thing in many ways. But the negative side of it is that we start getting very comparative and we start associating others' lives and realities with what we think ours should be.
Exactly.
And we never know what that experience is like. For me, playing professional golf, it was not a fairy tale. It wasn't glamorous. It was freaking hard. Like, it sucked more than it was good, right?
Exactly.
And even now, looking back on it, when I'm like, oh man, I wish I was still playing. Like when I watched the PGA Championships last week and just get so inspired, I'm like, I gotta get back up there. Even then, I'm like, I'm forgetting how hard it was and how much sacrifice it took and how much pain and labor and toil and not fun parts of it there are. Because we only remember the glamorous side.
Exactly.
So
and from the outside looking in, it looks like it's, oh my God, it's this great lifestyle. But from the outside, people don't see, man, what you actually have to go through to get to that certain level, and that's a lot.
It is, yeah, and that's true of any journey. It doesn't matter if it's golf, it doesn't matter if it's being a speaker, it doesn't matter if it's working your way up the corporate ladder. I mean, nothing happens overnight. It takes time. It takes patience and persistence. When you blend patience and persistence together, that's a recipe for success. Plus time, right?
Exactly. You need that time portion, and that's the one thing that we really can't control.
No,
I can't control the patience. I can't control the perseverance, but sometimes time just has to take its course.
100%. Yeah.
So you talk about mastery, and I like that in this book. And that's one thing that we all have in common. We all can focus on or attempt to try to master our own lives. What do you feel is the, I guess, necessary steps people should take towards mastering their own lives?
I think that's an important concept to start with, is just to understand that mastery is both objective and subjective. So in an objective sense, there is a mastery that everyone would agree to, right? So like a Michael Jordan, a Tiger Woods. These are people that are objectively mastered. They have reached mastery. But the subjective version is the more important one, and that's your individual mastery. So the mastery for the version of you, right? We each have an individual version of mastery that we can push for, and that's what I'm advocating for above all else. It doesn't matter what your gifts or capabilities are. It matters that you can push yourself beyond your current capacity and pursue your own individual mastery. And there's objective ways we can quantify that too. But I think that's important to understand, that everyone has a level of mastery that they can reach towards. And then how to do that? Well, I think first you have to figure out where you're going, right? Where are you going and what are you trying to do, right?
Exactly.
And that will help you define what that version of mastery is. And then you really have to get clear about your why. I mean, this can't be said enough. It's talked about a lot, but it needs to keep being talked about, because if we don't have a overarching reason or a purpose for why we're doing what we're doing, it won't last. There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be hardships. There's going to be dead ends where you have to backtrack and go a different way. So with those, if you don't have a purpose or a foundation for why you're doing it, it's going to fizzle out. And that's going to happen over and over again. So having that why in place is so important. And then I think the biggest key beyond those is self-awareness. There's a great quote by this guy, Chris Quartz, and he said that if you can't self-observe, you can't self-correct. And so along the journey, we're going to have to self-correct, but if we can't truly see ourselves, we're not going to be able to correct ourselves accurately. And so self-awareness is really the key to unlocking our ability to pursue individual mastery, because it's kind of that door that opens up to be able to move from the universal principles to the individual principles. So things that best apply to you and how you're wired and how you're gifted. Because anytime you get into a job or a career or even a sport, you're going to be taught a lot of universal principles, the fundamentals, right? And the more you get deeper and deeper into whatever job or role you're in, you're going to get more and more of those that add up.
Exactly.
But you get to a point where, okay, there's a sea of options. Now it's not necessarily about just knowing all the options, about which one is best for me in this situation in this way. And that's where self-awareness comes in.
That's good. So you talk about, the why, and that's big. I would say that is probably the purpose question, the why question, is something that most people struggle with.
Yeah.
And I always say this, I've been very fortunate from a young age to kind of have an idea of the direction I felt my life should go in. Most people are not that fortunate.
Sure.
They struggle with trying to find that why. What advice do you have for people who are in that situation, who they may not be a person of faith, so maybe that has something to do with it, or maybe they are a person of faith and they still struggle with the why question? How can someone get that direction? Yeah,
I think you hit a great point. Like, I am a person of faith, and that's the thing that shapes my ultimate why. You don't have to be, right? You can be we all have faith in some regard. We have faith in something, right? Like, it could be science, it could be religion, it doesn't matter. But the point is, I think there's actually a really helpful question. This is what I work with individuals on in my development performance coaching practice. And the key question that I ask all of them is, who have you been created, equipped, and called to be? Now, the reason why I love this question is because it hits on 3 levels, right? Created is going to be your natural gifting. Naturally, we've all been created uniquely and different and gifted in different ways. Some may be creative, some may be analytical, some may be athletic, some may just be nerds. These are great. They're great. We need them all. So who have you naturally been gifted to be? That's created. Equipped. So what have your life experiences given you up to this point, right? Everyone's lives are gifting them and equipping them in some way. And your experiences have proven value to you in some measure. So what are those experiences, and what's that equipping been? So create, equipped, and called. What are you called to? What do you feel the passion in your heart to accomplish? What is that big dream and vision that you have for making an impact in the world? So if you can take your natural giftings, your lived experience, and that passion for what's to come, and marry those, that gives you a really good understanding of what your purpose is, what your calling is, what your why is, and why you're doing what you're doing. So I think that's a great framework for processing. And then we have to remind ourselves. That's the daily practice. Then, okay, put that in front of my mind because I'm an idiot and I forget.
That's true. Do you feel someone should, that passion or that purpose should necessarily be what they do from 9 to 5? Can it be separate? Should it be one and the same?
There's trade-offs, right? I think there's opportunity cost for everything. That's just truth, right? So everything has a cost. If it's not your 9 to 5, you have the benefit of not basing your income or your security on that, which helps in a lot of ways. There's a lot of benefits to that, right? It's you aren't over controlling with it. You aren't trying to force things to happen. You aren't losing sleep over this. And on the flip side, I think if you're able to handle a greater threshold of risk and your risk tolerance is higher, then it may make more sense to make that your full-time everything, because it will be more risky. It's being fully sold out to the vision, and that's always going to be more risky. And some people aren't as risk tolerant, so that may not be a better path.
And you talk about that in the book about doubt.
Yes.
And how someone can have it in their mind, this is my plan A, there is no plan B, there is no plan C. Matter of fact, I heard Eddie Murphy, he said that when he came out here, he knew in his mind, this is what I was going to be. There was no second plan. There was no, if this doesn't work, he put all his energy in making sure my plan A works. Do you feel everyone should have that type of approach to life, or their purpose, or their work? This is going to work no matter what. I'm not going to quit until I see it. Or do you think that does more damage than good?
It's a yes and kind of. It's a both and, right? There's a great book by Seth Godin called The Dip, and he talks. It's a really short book on when to stick and when to quit. When you reach this dip in any journey, There'll be a point where you have to say, okay, do I stick it out through this, even though it doesn't seem like there's a positive outcome, or do I quit and do something that I'm actually going to be the best in the world at?
Exactly.
And that's a point that we all get to, and it's a tough decision for everyone. I think with the no plan B, I think that's actually really helpful for all of us, because we're so inclined to have plan Bs.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy,
It's easy.
right? It's like, okay, if this doesn't work out, then I'm
I
going to
got
let this
this.
happen,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And contingencies seem safe, and they seem wise. But if we're honest with us, it's just leaving the door open for failure. And it's saying, it's giving ourselves a cushion to fall on.
Exactly.
And, you know, like, we don't actually learn that much from falling on a cushion. We learn from falling on the ground and like, oh, that hurt, you know?
Yeah.
So being fully sold out, being fully committed, not leaving the door open for doubts and fears is necessary when you're doing something that's really hard. If you're in a 9-to-5 and your goal is just to make the next step, it may not be as necessary, but it's going to limit your potential. It will limit your potential.
Yeah.
You can't be fully sold out until you don't have a plan B or a plan A.5. And that's when we really get to see our true potential.
Exactly.
That's when we reach the 99 percentile of what we're capable of. And usually we have to be forced to get there because we can't get there on our own.
Yeah.
And so not having a plan B helps us force ourselves to get there.
And I think a lot of times when there is a plan B, you know, the mind is such a powerful thing. But if I'm putting half my energy on this plan A and the other half on this plan B, then I'm not giving everything to this plan A anyway.
Yes.
And that does more damage than good.
It does. Yeah, that's the whole generalist versus specialist, you know.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I'm caught in the generalist right now. And if there's some good things to that too, you know, I'm doing like 5 or 6 things and I'm very limited in all of them because I'm doing 5
Exactly.
So it's like, it's cool to have the diversity, but man, I can only take a little bit of steps on each one. There's trade-offs. So
Execution. You know, a lot of times people, you know, we're good at planning. I think we've had enough self-help books to where people, we have vision boards and, you know, we're making New Year's resolutions and we try to plan. But what I see and experience with so many people is not the planning that we have a problem with, it's the execution.
Yeah.
We have a problem seeing things through. What do you feel people need to do in order to master execution?
Well, that's a very important point. And we all, I mean, I think everyone
and
of us,
we're all guilty.
We're all like, yep, that's me. So, gosh, at the end of the day, it just comes down to doing it. Like, it's discipline. And discipline is doing what you know you need to do, regardless of how you feel. And that's every day. How can I be disciplined? How can I do what I know I need to do? Because there's going to be plenty of days when I don't feel like doing it. And that's how we actually get better. Because when you do something you feel like doing, you're not working out, right? Working out, when you get to the gym and you do that 10th rep and you can't get up, that's where the strength comes from.
That's the magic.
And so if we can realize that the growth is in the doing, not in the, you know, and there's a great quote, I think Millard Fuller said that it's easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than to think your way into a new way of acting. And so we often think, okay, I have to think my way into acting a certain way. Actually, it's the opposite way around. You act your way into thinking a new way. And so we can develop the discipline, the muscle of acting by doing it. And then our thoughts come and our emotions or feelings come after that. So we can't always trust our emotions or our feelings in the moment. And that's where priming or planning, where reflecting, where learning from the past and also preparing for the future are so important. And then finding ways to hold ourselves accountable. Like I'm big on this concept of how can we stack the deck in our favor. Life is already hard enough. Everything is life is not going to perfectly match itself to your expectations and goals and outcomes.
Every single time, it won't.
So how do we stack the deck in our favor? How do we help ourselves help ourselves? That's a big part of what I'm about. And so I think that accountability is such a big part of that. And one of the best ways to do it is just by telling others what you're going to do. And literally by verbally communicating it, you're going to hold yourself that much more accountable to it because of our consistency bias. We want to be consistent with what we say we're going to do. And we don't want to be hypocrites. So when we tell anyone, it could be on social media, it could be a couple friends, it doesn't matter. just tell someone, and you're gonna hold yourself like 50% more chance of doing it.
That's true. I find myself doing the exact same thing. Like if I have a lofty goal, I don't just keep it to myself. I'm gonna start telling everybody. I'm gonna start spreading the word, because then you get people come back, well, how's that coming? How's it going? How's it going? And it also keeps you encouraged. It keeps you motivated when people come back and say, I know you said you were working on this project. How is that project coming? So, it creates that level of accountability that helps push you along to achieving.
I mean, I'm doing that right now with my audiobook. So I'm a little late in the game with the audiobook, and it's just been kind of annoying figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
But because I told people already that I'm doing it, I'm like, there's no option. I'm doing this, So like, and I did that on purpose. How can I make sure I do this and follow through with it? So
momentum. This was, I want to say, Mavericks owner. His name is
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban.
Yes.
He was talking about momentum and how it's such a powerful thing that once you have momentum behind you, the sky is the limit. Elon Musk, I think he's in the position he's in right now because of momentum. Tesla took off, so now he's like, okay, I can jump into space, and now I can jump into tunneling, and the sky is the limit because he has so much momentum behind him. Now, of course, that's an extreme case because he's a billionaire. But for everyday people who have maybe simple goals or maybe big goals, how can they build momentum in their lives so that they can start taking off like a rocket ship?
Massive. I think this is a great topic. The first step is always recognizing it. You have to recognize it to use it, right? If you don't recognize that life is filled with momentum, then you're never going to use it. And we know this. We know this to be true because we all experience it. There's mountaintop and there's valley lows, and there's everything in between. And life is a roller coaster, and it's a common maxim that we hear because it's true. And so if we can start recognizing where are we at in that cycle of ebbs and flows, and how do we use whatever part of that journey we're at to our advantage, again, stack the deck in our favor. So just as much as if you're in a valley low and you're trying to climb to the mountaintop, well, guess what? You get to climb even further because you're in the valley, and that's going to get you that much more strength. And so you get to say, okay, I'm getting stronger. This sucks right now, but I know I'm putting on muscle, and just as much when you're on the mountaintop, it's like, man, let me just appreciate this. Let me pause and just enjoy the view because this is such a blessing. And so
I work to get up there.
And we don't ever, that's the thing, we struggle with every part of the journey. We struggle with the mountaintop just as much as the valley low. It's like, we reach the mountaintop, we're like, where's the next one? No, it's like, hang out, enjoy it, But it's true that when you are on the momentum, right, when it's in your favor, that's when we really have to flip the switch. We're like, okay, and same is true in golf. I mean, you look at the best competitors, Tiger Woods, I mean, when the momentum's on the side, the gas pedal is beyond pressed. It's a game on, And how can we do that in life? When I'm in the zone, like writing or something, I'm like, okay, I know I had set this out for an hour, but I'm just going because I'm doing it. I'm feeling, I'm flowing. And there's other times like this last week, the blog post I just came out with, I knew I wanted to write one. I kind of had an idea of the topic, but it was hard, man. I didn't have clarity. It wasn't flowing. It didn't seem to be helpful. The words weren't coming out. I had to fight for it. And it was a couple days of fighting. And then I got through and wrote it. I was like really proud of myself. I was able to at least, So it can be as small as something like that, or it could be as something big as writing a book and going through those motions. It's a part of life. So it's up to you whether you use it or not, because it's not going to leave. So we might as well use it.
So I've written a few books myself. I don't consider myself a writer. Like I have a good friend of mine. He can write every day, all day, just off the top of his head. He could write songs, he could write books, he could write novels, anything he wants to do. His brain just functions in that way. For me, I have to have inspiration, one, and then two, it comes in spurts. To where I get inspired and I'm like, okay, I may start writing the book and spend 3 months on it. And then after the end of those 3 months, there's no more inspiration. I have no more desire to do any more writing for maybe another year. Do you feel in life people need to have inspiration in order to get things done? Or should they press their way through it? Like you talk about with the blog, some days it may just come very easily, and then some days you have to push yourself through it. Is one better than the other?
There's another great quote by, I think, James Clear. He said that inspiration reveals itself after perspiration. And I'm like, it's pretty true. Like, I mean, inspiration and motivation are great things, but usually they come by working to get there, you know? Great art, great work doesn't happen by inspiration. It happens by the discipline of doing it. And through that kind of comes inspiration. Michelangelo said that if people knew how hard I had to work to get the mastery I did, they wouldn't think it's so beautiful at all. You know, it's like, this wouldn't be, they wouldn't think this is beautiful, you know?
Exactly.
So there is a degree that inspiration is a really important part of the process, but it can never be what you're relying on because it's fleeting. Discipline has to be what you rely on. And through that, inspiration does come. But we also have to understand, how do we unlock that inspiration? Because it does come in spurts. But what are the things that produce those spurts? For me, one of my favorite things to do for writing, especially in synthesizing ideas, is to go run in nature. Go on a trail run, go run up a mountain or something, and just getting outside, moving, and having space and detachment produces this amazing connection of ideas and thoughts. And so that's, for me, one of the best tools for inspiration. So I think understanding what produces inspiration for you, and then intentionally using that as a tool, not as your foundation or what you're depending on, is the best way to do it.
Okay. Some good advice. People struggle getting from point A to point B. You know, a lot of times, you know, we plan, we have these goals, and most people don't know how to get there. Sometimes it's laid out for you, but most people struggle with getting from point A to point B. What do you feel? Is there a process that you feel is best for someone? I'm at point A, I want to get to point B, I don't know how I'm going to get there. Let's say it's a business. I have this idea for this business in my head. I don't know anything about how to get funding. I don't know anything about looking for a location. So we have these ideas, but a lot of times we don't know how to get there. Is there a method or a process that you feel is best for someone to follow to getting to the next step or getting to point B?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's generalizations are only generally true. So I want to caveat with that. But, you know, Eric Schmidt, I think he's from Google. He said that persistence blended with experimentation is what equals success. So we have to be persistent, but we have to be open-handed with our persistence, because we don't know what's best until we do it, and then we learn usually what's not best, and we get to iterate and experiment and change and shift, right? So there's a blend of persistence with iterations that produces the outcome we want, but you always have to start with a plan. I mean, I think one of my mantras, one of the things I'm most outspoken about, is living intentionally. How can we live with intention every day? Not just haphazardly doing whatever's on our task list.
Going through the motions.
How do we have intention and strategy so that we aren't just, again, going through the motions and just going in a circle instead of going on a trajectory? And that takes intention, it takes planning, and it takes iteration. It takes experimenting and blending it with iterations and changing and shifting it as needed, because we won't know the full picture from point A. But from A.5, then we'll know, okay, well, I see it differently now than I did back at the start, and this is actually where I need to go to get to here. So I think that's a really important part.
And anyone, do you feel everyone can be successful in life?
Yes.
Everyone has the ability to be successful.
The key to that question is, what does success mean, right? And that is a very subjective question. I think everyone has to answer. What does success mean for me? Because when you say everyone can have a successful life, yes, but everyone's definition of that will be different. And the important thing is, what's the definition for you, right? And if you actually make a definition for that, then you probably will be successful. But if you don't, you won't. Like,
exactly.
You can't be, you know? Because you're going to get to whatever you had thought it was because you had someone else tell you, and it won't be what you thought it was. So we have to define what that is for us individually.
So many people back. No matter what relationship, businesses, academics, just in their personal relationships, emotionally, fear can be a crutch.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people who, everybody deals with fear, but what advice do you have for people people need to overcome that in order to master their life?
Such an amazing big topic. I want to start with a quote by Mike Tyson's trainer, Chris Yamato. He said that fear is like fire. It can cook for you, it can heat your house, or it can burn you down. I'm like, man, so that's what fear can do. It truly is like a superpower. It's a natural physiological response, so everyone has it. The problem is we associate it with things that aren't it's a life-threatening response, right? It's ramping up our body's ability to face a life-threatening situation, and that's a survival mechanism that's a really good thing. But it's not good when we use it in situations that aren't life-threatening, which is every day. And so it's understanding the difference between rational fears, which is like lion in front of you, body freak out because there's a lion. And then irrational fears, which are like, there's my boss, okay, body freak out like he's a lion, he's not. So we have to know, okay, what are my irrational fears? We have to discover the lie. What is the lie? What is the irrationality in that fear? And then how can we replace that lie with truth? So, boss comes in the room, a fear response is, oh crap, I gotta look like I know what I'm doing or he'll be upset. Okay, the lie is that you gotta look like you know what you're doing and he'll be upset if you're not. That's a lie. Like, he just wants to know that you're doing the best you can do. And if you are, then you have nothing to worry about. So then how do you replace that? So you're on the same team, he cares about you, you're trying to, so there's a lot of things, that's a process we get to go through. But I think it's really important to understand that once we start understanding the lies and replacing with truth and get good at that habit, because that takes practice, then we start saying, okay, how can I use this to amplify my abilities, to heat my house, to cook my food, not just to potentially burn down, but like that's what the best performers do. They say everyone has that response, but the best performers use it to their advantage because it actually heightens our ability. So let's use it to our advantage. There's a great book, Stephen Kotler, The Rise of Superman. It's all about flow states. Because flow states are hyper-focused. It's when you're in the zone, when the time slows down, all these amazing things. And that's using the fear response to your benefit. Extreme athletes have to do it the most because their lives depend on it. But we all have the ability to do it. So that's a great resource for people that if they want to learn what the process is like. I think it's really cool.
LeBron James, he's one of the greatest right now. And it seems like he has the ability to when push comes to shove, if he needs to make that last 2-second shot, he's able to do it. And the crowd can be going wild, and there's so much pressure, but he seems to be able to always come through in that situation. And you think that's the same thing he's able to master. He's learned how to turn that fire and use it for his advantage.
It's all the things we talked about today. Like, it's all of them combined. Michael Jordan, right, talks about how he missed 10,000, game-winning shots before that's what he made the ones he did, So it's the understanding that you're not afraid of failing. Like, that's the fear that unlocks it. Like, I'm not afraid of missing the shot. And that's what allows you to make that shot. Because if you're ever afraid of missing that shot, you're going to miss it. Especially when the game's on the line. But these guys have missed that shot enough to where they've learned from that. And they've accepted the fact that they've accepted the miss. If I miss it, okay, I'm not afraid of that. But I'm going to make it. That's what unlocks it.
And guess what? The day is going to go on. The game is going to go on. I'm going to have another opportunity to do this again. It's amazing how you frame basically every situation, whether it's failure, even or success, how I frame it is ultimately going to determine the course of my life.
It's amazing, dude. There's another book I just finished called You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it talks about the placebo effect on our body. And it is mind-blowing. The power our minds have over our bodily functions prove the fact that you are what you believe. So I can't underscore that enough.
I have a little bit of knowledge in placebo and pharmaceutical drugs and things like that. And I want to say it's about 40% the placebo effect. So a new drug comes to market. It's in phase 1 testing, phase 2 testing. The people that participate in those clinical trials, they don't know if they're getting placebo or medicine. And so I have cancer. I get into this study, I'm getting placebo, so I'm basically getting
Sugar pills. Yeah, yeah, sugar pills.
And I see my cancer eradicate.
Yeah.
It's actually, it leaves my body because my brain thinks I'm getting this life-altering medicine. That's the power of the brain.
It is.
Wow. Now, if we can take and harness that power and put it into every area of our life, man, we will be Superman.
And that's the key. Like, that's what I'm so blown away with. Why are we controlling this out?
Yeah.
Why are we not programming this in, you know? And that's what we get to do in everyday life. I mean, and I think that's what's so cool about even like something as a sickness. Once we start seeing it as an opportunity for growth, right? Not as a chance for death. That's what unlocks our ability, right, for our body to heal. The same is true in life. Once we see these obstacles, these setbacks, these failures as not just an identity pressure or determinative reality, but as an opportunity to learn, grow, and succeed. That's what unlocks our ability. It's very parallel. It's amazing how it works. It's all connected.
Exactly. And that's a good thing, because I can take what works in one area, apply it to the next, and I should see the same results if my mindset is the same.
Yeah.
What are Thane's 3 keys to life? So if you had to give someone 3 bits of information, if you want to master your life, if you want to turn around your life, you know, this podcast is called Second Chances. It's all about mastering the second chance. Whether you're on your 3rd chance, your 4th chance, or your 5th chance, how can I make sure I master the next attempt? And what are 3 keys you can give yourself?
Yeah, I'll give 3 keys and then a couple, a closing mantra. Just because, like, so first one is commitment is necessary. Commitment is necessary in all aspects of life. If you're not committed to something, you'll be committed to everything, right? So you have to say no in order to say yes. We have to be committed to what we're pursuing for a long enough time to ever see it through and to ever be successful in anything. So commitment can't be understated enough. The second is that learning is the journey. Learning is the journey that we're all on in life. And if you become good at learning, there's nothing you can't learn. So learning is almost the key ingredient to life too. And really, if we can be lifelong learners our whole life, then it's going to be a success. And we all have the capacity to do that. And then the third is that failure is likely.
I like that.
And if you're trying to do challenging things, which I hope everyone watching this are, failure is likely. And again, that's a good thing. If we thought we've kind of beat the horse to death, but it's true, right? It's a great tool and it's a resource. It's an ally to help us get better. And so, like, the mantra that I'm all about, and that I'm really driven to help others be about, is twofold. And I believe if we can all do these 2 things individually, then we can make massive effects in society at large. The first is take ownership. Take ownership of your life, of your decisions, of your actions on a daily level, and own it, and take responsibility for it. And then the second is never settle. So never settle for less than you're capable of. Settling is the default path, right? We've talked about this. It's like, if you don't choose a path, you're going to settle. We all naturally do that. So we have to choose to not settle. And once we make that choice, we can do amazing things. So if we can take ownership and never settle individually, then we can move the needle societally and globally for the difference and the impact that we can make as a people and as a race.
Wow. I like that. Life is a journey. Learning is a journey. Do you feel you have mastered where you are, or you feel there's a long way for things to go?
Long way. I hope there's always a long way, right? Another great quote. I love quotes. Another great quote. Forward progress is not a finished process. So making forward progress is never finished. There's no limit for better. That's what Harrison Ford said too, right? So like, I'm in process just like the rest of us. Do I feel capable and competent in what I'm doing? Yes, but I can always get better and always improve and grow. And is there more to press into? Always. There's always deeper. There's always more. So how can I keep pressing in and pressing on and seek that discomfort, because it is uncomfortable and we all want comfort, you know, so.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this was a pleasure, Thane. I appreciate you.
Oh, man. A blast.
You're an awesome guy. You have a bright future, I'll tell you that.
JR, same to you, brother. This has been, thanks for having me on, and just excited to see what the future has in store for you.
This book, great read, I downloaded it and I could not finish it. I'm waiting for it. Will there be a part 2?
Yeah, there will be another one. Yes, I think the next one, the back of my mind is called Simple But Not Easy, the First 30 Years.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
So
and would this be based on your life? It's going to be more like...
It's going to be the first 30 years of life, yeah, and how the process is very simple, but just because it's simple does not mean it's easy, and then unpacking what's simple about it and why it's not easy.
That's good. I can't wait.
Cheers, brother.
Appreciate you, thanks.